Hey, everybody, welcome to Freedom Talk. I'm here with my good friend, Sheriff Mark Lamb, hard-working sheriff in Pinal County. Welcome to Freedom Talk.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for the intro
Yeah.
too. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, we really appreciate you just north of us here in Tucson and all the work you're doing on the border. And I know you've been involved in election integrity as well. Do you have some thoughts on the primaries? Do you think there's been malfeasance or what's going on in Pinal County in particular?
Well, we've had our share of our problems. We first the ballots were wrong. That it was about 2-3 weeks ago. We had to deal with that issue. Came up with what they thought was the best solution, which is amendment ballots. And then just the other day, we had ballot shortages at a lot of the precincts throughout the county. And so that was not good. Obviously, I got a ton of messages, phone calls, emails. And then yesterday at the board meeting, a bunch of people showed up to express their displeasure. And here we are trying to gain the confidence of the people back, and we've done nothing but go further the other way. And it's embarrassing for us. And I know the county is taking measures to be able to hopefully regain the trust of the people. So it's been a rough few days as far as just how we've been perceived here in this county, but all I can do is just tell the people that I'm doing the best I can to oversee it from my standpoint and whatever I can do.
Sure, that's much appreciated. I understand the elections director was terminated today.
Yes, he was terminated today, and I wanted to explain how the county recorder and the elections director work here in Pinal County. I think it might be different from other places. The board years ago separated these two out, so the elections director is not under the county recorder. The county recorder is responsible for making sure the early ballots go out. The county recorder is also responsible for voter rolls. The elections, the ballots, the elections, that's the responsibility of the elections director. The elections director was responsible for the last two major mistakes, and the elections director has been terminated. The county recorder, who I have a lot of faith and confidence in, who's very well qualified, she has been placed in as she stepped down as the county recorder from her elected position, and she took the position of interim elections director to see us through the November general elections. And they're working on filling the county recorder position, reappointing somebody to that. So that's where we're at here. You asked if I thought there was anything malicious. We don't have any signs of anything malicious, but we are looking into several allegations. And I just hope that the people understand we are taking this matter very serious. Myself, the county attorney, the board of supervisors. It's been an embarrassing situation, like I said, for us. And we want to make sure that people can trust us moving forward. And we got some work to do to regain that.
Gotcha. So the county recorder has stepped in as the interim director, and this wasn't really her doing. It sounds like I'm hoping she doesn't get the backlash from that. But it's good to know some things are going on. I know Kathleen Wynne, who ran for Congress in CD6, she had launched a lawsuit about the 63,000 ballots that were sent to the wrong addresses, and then felt that had been addressed. But obviously, having ballots sent out wrongly, trying to get the word out about that, I think would be very difficult. It's kind of hard to unring that bell, I would think.
What do you do? A lot of people
Mm-hmm.
don't do social media. A lot of people don't watch the news. Trust me, from somebody who tries to put out information all the time, it's hard to get information out to all the county residents. So when you make a mistake and it takes people out of their ordinary routines of how they would normally vote, it really throws a wrench in things. And we started off on a bad foot by not getting the ballots right with the people, and then obviously not having enough ballots at the polling places was just the last straw. So
Yeah, as a citizen, this is probably not realistic, but I almost wish we could have a do-over and do it right. But
I can tell you the county I think would be willing to do that, but the county has the county can't make that decision. That
right,
decision is made by the Secretary of State and the and legislation is what determines, what timeframes elections have to be done in. And so we can't just go out and say, hey, we messed up, we're going to do another election in a week or two. That's going to be all dictated by legislation and out of our control, or out of the county's control. I keep saying we because I am a team guy, but I mean, I think most people understand this wasn't the county attorney, this wasn't the sheriff, this wasn't the board, this was the elections director that made these mistakes, and we're now stepping
Yeah.
in to try to fill that gap and make it right.
Well, I think it's great that you talk about we, but the buck stops at the director's desk because that was his responsibility. I'm sure, and I know, like, thinking about doing a do-over is a slippery slope, because then what happens in the next election and somebody tries to do that. But the 63,000 ballots to me is problematic. I want to shift a little bit though, and I know this is outside of your county, but what are your thoughts on Maricopa County taking so long? And I understand Pima County also. We're waiting on Pima County.
So I just had this conversation with some folks today. It's frustrating because Arizona lags behind when so many other states are doing it right. But we have the ballots that are being mailed out. We allow people to return those, or the state of Arizona allows you to return that ballot the day of the election. So you can come drop it off in a box or in a bin. Well, it's not like showing your ID and getting a ballot and going voting at the poll. You're dropping off a ballot in the envelope, and now they have to go and match, because they don't. You may drop it off in a precinct that isn't even your precinct. They may drop the ballot off in Phoenix, and they live in Saddlebrook down by Tucson. So they now have to take those ballots and match up the signatures and make sure that they are a voter. And it takes a little bit of time to count those. I'm frustrated too. I just had somebody explain it to me. That's the only reason I can explain it to you now. So there is a process with just making sure you count all those ballots and verifying that those ballots are legit. And unfortunately, that lags, and it just makes everybody feel like fraud's happening. Like, buckets of ballots are being found in obscure locations, and with good reason. We've been stung, and we just don't have confidence in the process. And I've been trying to be a champion for that, but then in my own front yard and backyard, we had problems. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you for the update. I really appreciate that. I want to shift gears a little bit, because I know you and Janelle were recently just up in Minnesota, and you're working on some new books. And you want to tell us a little
yes,
bit about your new books?
I wish I could tell you the title, but I don't know it yet. I'm on a working title right now, but my book is based off the poem by Rudyard Kipling, If.
Love
It's a
that
great
poem. Yeah.
poem if you haven't read it. And I tell a lot of stories from the founding father stories, and tie those into the principles that are contained in that poem, Rudyard Kipling, called If. Right now, the working title I have is You'll Be a Man, My Son, because that's the last line of the poem. Um, it just isn't calling my name yet. So I wish I had a title, because I would love to promote it. But it will probably be ready and available for purchase probably within about 45 days. It is being edited right now, and then we've got to format it. We got to get it up onto Amazon and do all that. So I would love to come back on and promote it again when we get a chance, when I actually have a title. My wife is writing another book, and her book, she should be done this week, and we'll get it over the editors. We don't have a title for hers yet either, but hers really is just designed to help people, and especially women, with how they feel about themselves, and how we feel as parents, and our deficiencies sometimes, and where we want to be physically and mentally, and we're not always there. And so just writes a lot about that, and just really kind of loving yourself, but also not being content with where you're at, physically or emotionally or mentally, and pushing yourself to be better every day, and to be the best you, but loving yourself at the same time.
Yeah, that sounds great. I love Rudyard Kipling's If. It's practically like scripture to me, because it's so very good, and I've had to stoop down and build things back up with worn out tools before. It's
Yes,
it's
sir.
it's great advice for a young man. In fact, it's in my book, Guidebook for a Son. I've quoted the poem in its entirety. So I'm really looking forward to your book, and we would love to have you back on to promote your book. Absolutely.
I would appreciate that. Yes.
So, Sheriff Lamb, I know you're running out of time, but I wanted to ask one last question. What do you feel about the future of this country? We're facing unprecedented challenges. We've got China at our doors. We've got an infiltration of, I'd say, Marxist thought and a degradation of the culture. Do you feel optimistic about the future of this country?
You know, I do, because I believe in America, and I believe that this is God's country, and the Constitution has God's stamp of approval on it. And so I believe that we will survive, but I can recognize that we are in some very challenging times. I think this is a battle of good and evil more than anything. And you can just see it every day, just how pervasive these evil principles are, and how they're just trying to shove them down our throats. And that's concerning to me. And I'm praying and hoping that people come back around. There's a series of books, is 4 volumes by Alexis de Tocqueville, called Democracy in America. In the early
Right.
1800s, the French government sent Alexis de Tocqueville here to understand our Constitution and our penal system. And so he came here, and there's a quote from one of his books, and he writes in there, he says, I searched for America's greatness and genius in her commodious harbors and in her ample rivers, and it was not there. In her fertile fields and in her boundless prairies, and it was not there. In her rich mines and in her vast world commerce, and it was not there. It wasn't until I went into the churches of America and discovered her pulpits aflame with righteousness did I understand her greatness and genius. America was great because she was good. And if America ever ceased to be good, America would cease to be great. And I think
Wow.
that's where we're at in this country, is we've just ceased to be good, and we've got to get back to being good, treating one another with dignity and respect. And I believe in the American people, and I believe that this American spirit will win the day, that the Constitution will, despite the fact that it might be hanging by a thread, will hold, and we will be able to restore America to what it's been and what the founding fathers built. So that's a long way of saying, yes, I believe in America, but we definitely have some issues that we need to address, and we better wake up as Americans before we lose it.
Yeah, that's great to hear. And I think it was James Madison who said only a virtuous people can be free. And one of the things we're doing with Freedom Talk is working to restore the virtue, the Judeo Christian values, a true sense of our history. And, a lot of people have lost all restraint, and we have to be self governing, or we're going to have to be governed by an outside authority. So I know that's a work in progress. The elections are very, very important, but so is encouraging one another, teaching kids, setting a good example, being a role model. And I want to thank you for being a role model. I think you're someone that young people in particular can look up to, and we're very much looking forward to your book. Mark, thanks so much for coming on today, and
Thank you.
have a really great night.
And thank you for the kind words, for your love of freedom and fight for freedom. And that's what's going to take us, all of us, to win America back. So
I agree. Yep, everybody needs to get involved and take back this country and restore its greatness. So thanks, Sheriff Lamb, and we'll talk again soon.
sounds good. Thank you.
All right.